let's troubleshoot the kettlebell swing. We're going to talk about some of the most common errors that we see with kettlebell technique and how we can correct them. Problem number 1 is leaning back too much at the top of the swing. So here, if you're leaning back at the top of your swing, what that means is you're essentially just pushing the hips all the way forward and letting the shoulders come back to counterbalance the bell. However, what this is going to do, it's going to end up placing excessive strain on your lower back, and you're probably going to end up feeling a little stiff and sore there, especially if you're trying to do this technique with heavy swings. So how we want to correct that is think about at the top of your swing, your shoulders should be directly above your hips. And in order to facilitate that nice straight line, both the glutes and the core should be engaged really strongly. So we're thinking almost of pulling the glutes and the core towards each other. That's going to give us all the full hip extension we need, and that should be plenty of momentum to let that bell float up. So to correct it and show the proper way, let's think shoulders right over the hips at the top of that swing. Problem number 2 with the kettlebell swing is using too much arm strength in order to pull the kettlebell to the top of the swing instead of using leg drive. So that's going to look a little something like this. So if we are using the arms to pull the kettlebell to the top, we're not getting the real benefit of building explosive leg strength from the swing. And really, it's not going to lend itself so well to doing this with a heavier bell. You could strain your shoulder or strain any one of the arm muscles or even your back by taking too much load with the upper body. So in order to correct this, think about making sure to let the kettlebell come all the way into the hips, drive into that backswing. As you come up, give as much explosive power as you can from the legs, and then keep the shoulders down. Let the kettlebell just float. Maybe even allowing a slight bend in the elbows to remind yourself that you don't want to be tensing all those arm muscles and pulling the bell to the top. So at the top of your swing, you should be able to see the shoulders sitting down, and you should see a little float of the kettlebell. So that's going to look like this. Problem number 3 that's going to come up with the kettlebell swing is treating the swing as a squat as opposed to a hinge. So the difference there, our squatting movement, is we're going to be bending a lot more through the legs and sitting back this way. Essentially, your chest is going to stay up higher when you're in a squat position. For a hinge position, we're just going to have a slight bend in the knees, and we're actually going to let the chest come down farther. Now, this is a little bit counterintuitive for some people to think of a swing as a hinge because they think the more they bend over, the more load there is on the back, which is not necessarily true, especially if you're engaging the core the right way. You actually should be feeling much more of your hamstrings and your glutes working the deeper you get into that hinge position. So when you're squatting with the bell, what that area is going to look like, something like this. So while I wouldn't want to tell you that that movement is necessarily a wrong movement, it isn't. It's just not getting you the same benefit of explosive power in your hamstrings and glutes as the hinge swing. So if that's really what you're looking to build, then you want to transform this swing into more of a hinge. So here you're going to think about, instead of starting to bend the legs before the arms get down to the hips, I want you to wait until your arms come all the way into the body, and then you're going to let your chest come down with just a slight bend in the knees as you reach back. And you should feel a much bigger engagement from your hamstrings when you do the swing this way. So we're going to correct that right here. Problem number 4 with the kettlebell swing is when you're hinging too early and you're not allowing the arms to come all the way into the body before you go into the backswing. So that's going to look something like this. So what that's going to do if you hinge too early, first of all, the bell is going to stay farther from your hips. So if that bell is farther down, what that means is that instead of hinging from your hips, most of the load is going to end up being on your back, and you're going to end up oftentimes hinging through your back and just loading the lumbar spine more than you would like to. It's also not going to allow you to get as deep into your backswing because you're shortcutting your backswing as the hips are already going back before the kettlebell even gets to the legs. So you're going to end up with a shorter backswing, which gives you less time to build that explosive power on the way up. So in order to correct this mistake, think about feeling your arms hit your waistband before you even hinge back. So you're going to think about it like playing chicken with the kettlebell. Wait until the last possible moment the bell comes into the body to get out of the way. Okay, so think about that. Play chicken with your kettlebell. It's going to look something like this. Problem number 5 with the kettlebell swing is keeping the arms too straight and rigid throughout the movement. So what this is going to cause is this is going to force you to pull the bell on the way up instead of letting it float from the momentum of the legs. Because even if you push the arms with the legs, it's going to be hard to keep them straight all the way up unless you pull the bell. And typically what will happen here as well is that the wrists are going to bend. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. So in addition to that, overworking your arms and oftentimes your back means your shoulders are going to be shrugging up, so you're overusing your trapezius muscles. You actually want your shoulders packed down into your body, so you're using your lats and your core more in order to let that weight float at the top. Another thing is that if the wrists are bending this way, you're going to put extra strain on your forearms. And in the backswing, sometimes you'll end up bending your wrists as well, which interrupts that smooth backswing with the bell. So to correct this, think about giving a slight bend in the elbows when the bell comes up. So that bell, you're going to let it just float as soon as you've pushed with the legs, shoulders down, slight bend in the elbow, and just let that bell float up. And that slight bend is just going to remind you that the arms are not working at the top of the swing. So it's going to look something like this.